So just to start off with, this is the hat. For the hat, what I just did is, well, I live in Nebraska, so I just went out to a store and I found a red beanie. This one had Huskers on it. It also had a Nebraska N. You can kind of see it here, but I covered it up with the arrow. I did kind of a sloppy job here. If you wanted to, be more precise with drawing the arrow on, that would probably make your costume look even better than mine. So what I did originally was I bought a white fabric marker and was trying to slowly draw and trace out each of these lines. What you might find is that any fabric marker other than black takes about 5 minutes to draw just like barely anything. So I quickly switched over to just using this 3D fabric paint, and that's what the hat and the shirt is all made of, because this is just a very quick squeeze out. If you want, what I did was I kind of held a ruler off to the side and just kind of followed along with a steady hand and made, if it shakes off a little bit, what you can kind of do with the tip of it is just kind of spread the paint out until it forms sort of a line, and then I would put in each of the dots. When you're doing this, you're probably going to find you can keep it even, as in like these diamonds. So you go around one side, you can kind of keep that diamond pattern and then keep it going on the other side, which is what I did. But when you come around, unless maybe you could measure it exactly perfectly, you'll find it doesn't match up exactly, which isn't going to be a huge problem because most people aren't probably going to be taking your picture at Comic-Con or looking at you from the side, and either way they'll still kind of see the basic pattern on there. Mostly probably going to be looking at you from the front, so just make sure you get the front and the back and maybe at least one of the sides sort of even looking, and draw in the dots however you want. And for the arrow, kind of look at his hat design as you're drawing it and try to get a good trace going. I'd say do everything in white first. Obviously this stuff takes like 3 to 4 hours to dry, so what I would do is do one side, let it sit, start on the side, let it sit for a bit, and then finish out here. Then after that's all done, I would draw out the arrow with the white. Well, this is what I did. I draw out the arrow with the white, let that dry, and that sort of forms a little wall here, and then you just fill it in with your blue, and that'll give you a little arrow. Next up, what I did was I think I went down to a Shields or some sort of, sports outlet and found a small, long-sleeved, tight-fitting shirt. This tutorial is for like more of a tight-fitting shirt to kind of like more resemble the anime. If you're looking for more of like a loose fit, this tutorial's not for you. What I did for that was same thing with the hat. I originally started trying to use a fabric marker, this one in fact, and discovered that I originally thought maybe the felt was causing the problem on the hat and it would be easier on the shirt, but the shirt, it still just takes a really long time. So I just switched over, back to the fabric paint, drew out all the lines as evenly as I could. Again, you might run into the same problem with the sides sort of looking a little uneven, so like I said, just make sure you get the front and the back looking good, and the sides you can kind of like muddle through a little bit. For the sleeves, it was pretty easy. I just kind of laid them out and I drew squares on one side, let that dry, and then flipped the sleeve exactly over and drew squares on the other, and they lined up pretty well. So the sleeves should line up pretty easily. Front and back might not be perfect on the sides, but also you're going to be walking around Comic-Con or something with your, arms down at your sides, presumably. The next part was probably the hardest, and that was just trying to sew these, red hems around the bottom of the shirt and on the cuffs. So for that, what I did was folded part of this shirt up, to kind of make it more belly cut off, and sewed it inside the shirt. So that already kind of cut off. I didn't want to cut the shirt just in case it started to fray, so I just folded it up inside. And then on that seam on the inside, started sewing this into it. And we kind of sewed here and then folded it over so that the seam was more hidden. We didn't do that on the sleeves, but so you can kind of see it doesn't look as professional. But they're pretty small. Hopefully people aren't paying attention to those small details. Also, when you're at the sewing machine and trying to sew on the sleeves, this isn't a problem for the hem, obviously, because it's big, not the hem. Whatever the bottom part of a shirt is called. For the sleeves, Obviously you don't want to sew the sleeves shut, so just be sure you are keeping one part of the sleeve sort of rolled under and just slowly work along the sleeves. The sleeves are going to be the hardest part just because of this fact that you're going to have to slowly work along them, try to keep a straight line while you're doing it, while also keeping the other half of the sleeve sort of pushed down with your hand while pushing it up with your, like, the same hand. So kind of what I'm doing here. It's folded down, but you're going to hold it while you're pushing it through the sewing machine. Last part is the pants. This is fairly easy. You can just find... Most stores don't have red jeans because they aren't currently in style, but I just found these online. They're not my perfect fit, but, you know, beggars can't be choosers. For this, I did just use a fabric marker because black fabric markers are literally markers. The white ones aren't markers. They're like little paint somethings. I don't know. They're very difficult to use. But this, I can just go and create a bunch of different tiger stripes along with the black marker. And it was fairly simple. I tried to, you know, I didn't follow it exactly, but, you know, if you notice in some of the images, he does have like a long one here and big ones here and then smaller ones coming around. So just kind of get the general idea. So last part would just be accessories, shoes, boots if you want them. I chose not to get boots because I figured I don't want to waste money on them because they're crazy expensive. But I bought these cool looking Vans that kind of fit with this color scheme. And then, you know, when I'm not wearing the costume, I can just wear the Vans. So it wasn't a waste of money. And just one of these cap guns or something is pretty cheap from any like novelty store or, you know, kids toy store or something. But okay, so that's basically the costume. As far as cost goes, it's probably not that much cheaper than just buying like one of the leather ones they have pre-made online, but it is still a bit cheaper, and I kind of like the sort of raw look this has. Sort of looks more like a streetwear, almost more realistic looking of what like a real life Guido Mista would look like maybe. If you wanted to do a better job than I did on like the sewing lines and the arrow drawn on the hat, your costume would probably look way better than mine, so that would be cool. If we ever ran into each other at Comic-Con, we'd have to fight or something. But yeah, that's the tutorial. I didn't film this while I was creating it because I didn't have the idea to create the tutorial. But I figured now that it's done, you can still kind of follow along with these general guidelines on what I did. And just note that it works if you want to try it yourself.